So I appreciate the work that staff have done to guide us through this discussion. I appreciate the work this council has put in with 4 new councillors and me new in this job, doing this, trying to get up to speed so we can understand what this budget actually means and what we're actually getting from the budget, and the work that we have yet to do maybe to, in the years ahead, to sort of get where we need to be in our asset management plan, for example. So yeah, I appreciate people's work to get us to this point. And I have no other comments on that other than to say thank you for the work, and I am in support of the budget as proposed. I don't see any other people on the queue, so there is a recommendation on the table. It is moved, it's seconded. Oh, do you want one more comment, Councillor Fontaine? Yeah, the motion's on the floor and seconded, so we'd like to speak to it? Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to speak to the motion now that it's on the floor. And I'd like to, first of all, start my remarks by thanking Council, as did the Mayor, just in terms of, I want to acknowledge my colleagues, in particular those who have been here before and have gone through multiple budget processes, for being patient with me as a new councillor and allowing me to ask a lot of detailed questions. I'd also like to thank the staff for all the hard work that I know it's taken to put this budget together, in particular as they've managed this process both through a pandemic and through a civic election. While there is a lot to applaud within our budget, and no doubt you've heard tonight a little bit of that my colleagues have acknowledged many of the things that are worthy of applaud. There are also some things here that need some focus and some attention. And I'm going to, as one of only 2 members in the opposition on council, I think it's my role, I think it's our role to focus on some of the shortcomings of our budget. I was elected a few months ago by the citizens of New Westminster to represent the interests of all residents and business owners, regardless if they voted for me or not, and I take that role extremely seriously. And what I heard during the election was a number of citizens that want us as a council to make sure that we get the basics right. I also heard that they were concerned about downloading from senior orders of government, and interestingly, this has been happening here for at least a decade, if not longer, and it's happening in other councils too, but I'm speaking specifically to New West, and it has not been properly quantified. And that's why I'm very pleased that council supported a motion that Councillor Minhas and I brought forward to begin accounting for how much city taxpayers are paying for programs and services that should be paid by Ottawa or Victoria. And while I know it will not impact this budget, I'm confident that our finance staff will use that information as part of our 2024 budget development process. If the Vancouver example is any indication, downloaded costs are going to be running in the millions of dollars of expenditures in our city that could have otherwise been invested in city artists, cultural activities, and infrastructure programs. Your Worship, I'm very concerned about the 6.4% tax hike being proposed in this budget. I believe it might be the highest ever proposed in our history, and I won't lay claim to having done the research going all the way back, but I have looked at least in the last couple of decades. But regardless, when you stack it on top of the tax hikes that have been approved in this chamber over the past 8 years, and those were the good years, I want to add, when they were all well above the rate of inflation, we have a tax conundrum. And taxpayers are being stretched to the max this year as they deal with soaring rents, runaway grocery bills, paychecks that simply aren't keeping up with those type of expenditures. And I believe that a truly progressive government understands this, and it factors that into consideration when it's building its budget, and it makes sure that the most vulnerable are protected while doing everything it can to maintain fiscal discipline. And speaking of that, I want to focus in greater detail on our operating and capital budgets. When I got elected, I asked a few simple questions. What have we done to trim costs? And Councillor Henderson indicated that a report came in. I asked what programs and services are no longer serving their stated purpose, which have been trimmed back, which have been eliminated in the past few years. And can we quantify that as to how much it saved the corporation as a result of this? The response submitted was a good first attempt, but it fell short. It fell short in actually documenting the savings in dollars and cents. And to be clear, I'm not laying blame for this on staff by any means. Quite the contrary. This is actually an issue for which council needs to be held accountable. After all, our job as elected representatives to the people is to make sure that there is good oversight and rationale for every single dollar that's spent. And that's why I'm struggling this evening with a number of expenditures and spending priorities in this budget, which include over $500,000 for a reimagined petting zoo at Queen's Park, one that is on the verge now of creating a new mushroom wall and an insect farm. We're also about to undertake what I believe to be an expensive and unnecessary and yet to be defined and costed out rebranding exercise to remove the crown from our logo and public imagery. And is this really the time that we want to be spending limited tax dollars on something like that? Then we have BridgeNet, which was launched back in 2016. Taxpayers have made considerable investments over the past number of councils on BridgeNet, yet from my perspective, the tangible benefits and outcomes of this initiative continue to remain opaque and difficult to quantify at best. And now taxpayers are being asked tonight to invest even more through this budget. The rest of the province, through BC Hydro, invested in smart meters well over a decade ago when the infrastructure and labor costs were significantly lower. It took us until this 2023 budget to consider smart meters, and now taxpayers are being asked to shell out over $13 million for smart meters through our newest utility. In my opinion, the jury is out on whether this expenditure will deliver a proper return on investment. We've also invested considerable amounts of funds in a proposal for a new district energy project in Sapperton, yet this project is still, quote, just on the books, unquote, and has been languishing for what appears to be almost a decade. We also found out, thanks to recent delegations to council, that some of our electrical utility ratepayers are paying almost 30% more per month for their electricity bill compared to if that bill came to them from BC Hydro. And this does not even include the 3.5% climate action levy that the previous council imposed on clean, green, carbon-free energy. Through this budget process, it was also explained to us that Anvil Centre is losing over $5 million a year. Yet at the same time, we don't have the funds to build a much needed and long waited community centre downtown. So as you can see, Your Worship, while there are many things to celebrate in this budget, there are also many areas that require our attention and our leadership. And that's why it's this reason that both Councillor Minhas and I are challenged to raise our hand in support of this 6.4% tax increase and budget, which clearly fails to represent, in our opinion, the interests, the goals, and the objectives of all 7 members of this chamber. This budget doesn't prioritize funding for sidewalk repairs or pedestrians, lacks a vision for keeping our kids and seniors active and healthy by not making a targeted investment in an all-weather turf field in Queensborough, notwithstanding the fact that we have provincial funds available for us to do so, lacks a vision to support a new economically vibrant waterfront that would promote our tourism sector and create more jobs, lacks investment in encouraging more festivals and activities that will stimulate our retail sector, and most of all, it is not in tune with the average voter and small business owner who want us to be stewards of their tax dollars. So, Your Worship, I want to make New West a better place now and into the future, and I want to make sure that we are stewards of the tax dollars, and it's for that reason that I move an amendment to the motion this evening, and I will circulate the amendment. I've got copies, and I can distribute it to the clerk and go from there.